All right, so our next section is going to be the levels of biological organization. Last, we talked about sort of the classification of life, how we can break it down and describe it based on its appearance or based on its function. But now we're going to talk about the levels of biological organization. Life is organized into many different levels of complexity, and the very smallest level is going to be the atomic level. It's named this because the units of this level cannot be broken down any further by any chemical means. We can use nuclear fission or nuclear fusion to build up or break apart atoms, but by and large, these atoms cannot be broken down by any normal chemical means. And the largest level of biological organization is going to include the biosphere. It's going to encompass all the parts of the earth that can support life. So virtually all of Earth, because as we mentioned before, we find bacteria everywhere in the soil, in the air, in the water, and we find extremophiles. We find our domain archaea in the most extreme remote places of the earth. So virtually all of Earth can sustain life in some form or another. The next chapter, we are going to spend a lot of time on the atomic level and the molecular level of life before we move on to then the cellular level of life. The cellular level is considered the smallest unit of life because it is the smallest level that can exhibit all of the characteristics of life that we have discussed. So right here, we have our atomic level. Several atoms brought together will form a molecule. That'll be our molecular level. And then next we have our cellular level. Cells, as I just stated, they're going to be the smallest units of life. They're going to be composed of molecules or the chemical components of those cells. Those molecules can then work together to form what are known as organelles. Cells can contain those organelles. These are going to carry out specific functions. Organelle means quite literally little organ. So think of it as the organs of your body. Just like you have an organ in your body that is used to digest, break down, like your stomach, we're going to have specific organelles found at the cellular level that are going to aid in digestion. We're going to have specific organelles that are going to aid in the production of ATP. We're going to have specific organelles that are going to focus in on the storage of information, be sort of the brain of the cell. So that's what organelles are. They're going to be these tiny little organs that carry out specified functions at the cellular level. So once we talk about our cellular level in these next couple of chapters, we're then going to spend the second half of our semester at the organismal level, where we're going to be focusing primarily on human anatomy and physiology. So moving up from our cells, or moving up from our atoms, we start with our atoms. Several atoms working together to perform a same function are going to be what's known as a molecule. Those molecules come together to form organelles. Organelles work together to form a cell. Cells that have the same function and are grouped together are what are known as tissues. And there are a variety of tissues. What we have over here is an example of a muscular tissue. Two or more tissues working together towards the same function are going to be what's known as an organ. So like your stomach, as we've already mentioned, stomach is an organ that's made up of a variety of tissues that are made up of multiple cells, that are made up of a lot of molecules that are made up of a lot of atoms. And so two or more tissues working together towards the same function are going to be known as organs. At least two organs working together to perform a singular function are going to be what's known as an organ system. You may be familiar with these: the digestive system, the nervous system, the skeletal system, the muscle system. All of these systems are organ systems. They're made up of multiple organs working together to perform a specific function. An individual is going to be a single organism made up of multiple organ systems. So this is the organismal level, and this is where we're going to spend the second half of the semester, where we're going to be focusing on the human as a whole, breaking it down into its various organ systems and studying the organs that are found there. When we have multiple individuals of the same species living together in a common geographical area, this is what's known as a population. And there can be a variety of populations found in the same area. When several populations exist in this given area and interact, they form what is known as a community. So just as an example, there is a community in my house. There is a human population made up of myself and my husband. There is also an ant population made up of all the ants that are crawling in now that the weather is warmer. There is a spider population of the insects, of the spiders that eat the ants. In my backyard, there is grass, which is there's a grass population. There's also a tree population. Now, granted, the tree population only consists of one tree, but we have all of these different populations living and interacting in the same area, all form what is known as a community. So that's just one thing I want to help remind you of, is to consider when we're discussing a community, it's not just the animals found there, but also the plant life, the fungal life. If I have mold spores growing in my bathroom, that is a population that is, well, you could argue that it is not an important part of the community, but they do form a part of the community of my household. A community and its physical environment are what are known as an ecosystem. So while the plants, the trees, the ants, the spiders, those are all part of the community in my little household or in my yard space, the soil itself is not part of the community, but it is part of the ecosystem. The amount of sunlight that my grass gets, sunlight is not part of the community, but it is part of the ecosystem. An ecosystem contains all of the living and non-living components of an environment. So it would be the community and its physical environment. So soil, water, light, the dead timber that is used to make up my house, my carpet, all of those are part of the ecosystem of the populations that live in my household. All organisms exist within the much larger biosphere. The biosphere is going to be all of the parts of Earth where life is found. And as we said before, because bacteria are found everywhere, and archaea are found in even the most extreme environments, nearly every region of the Earth is going to be part of that biosphere, or where living organisms can be found. And those are going to be our levels of biological organization.